Radio Maria listeners and YouTube viewers. This is Christine and Christine on Find Your Way Home. Definitely right. Here. And we had no ingenuity when it came to our names. So we just...
No, she was afraid that she would, accidentally call me something else. So she searched for someone who had her same exact name.
Yes.
She got me. That's all you're stuck with.
That's what we do with limited intelligence. We make it work.
You look for equally or less intelligence. So she found a blonde version of herself.
Yes, I've always said I'm a blonde in disguise. And we have a very exciting brown, not blonde scapular, but brown scapular information for you. Green scapular information for you, because you're green with envy that she's a blonde. And purple scapular, because we all love Barney. I know, it's royal, purple scapular.
My favorite color.
What's
purple
that?
Is my favorite.
Oh, okay. And it's purple.
But we're all going to touch just a smidgen on the red as well.
That's right. There is a red scapular, probably the least well known.
Well, there's lots of scapulars. And when you and I set about doing this research, there's light blue, there's white, there's black, there's all these colors. And so I was like, well, you and I were both talking, what's the difference? So we decided today to talk about just some of them.
Yes. And we're excited to tell you the history and some of the miracles that surround these scapulars, because they, when worn with faith, are powerful. I guess that's what I learned from doing the research. The power. What did you most learn from doing the research for this show?
I guess I knew they had power. I trusted that. I didn't know what each one was promised. And so I was excited how they kind of all play together. And I was joking that they're a rainbow of scapulars. And depending on what your needs are, what your prayer life is like, literally you could choose to wear a different scapular. But I mean, I was thinking maybe I should wear all three of the ones or four of the ones we're talking about. We'll let you decide, right?
Okay. Well, if you view this show next time, we'll see what she's got worn around her neck. That'll be exciting to see. If we
I'm currently not wearing any.
Right. We might not be able to see your face, but we will see a rainbow of colors and delight in that. Should I start with the brown scapular, the first?
Yes, and let me start by asking you: do you wear a scapular yet?
That's not the right question.
Wrong question, because I'm not wearing one yet. And after this show, I'm going to get one. And I was truly waiting to see, because Christine studied some of the scapulars. I studied some of the others because it's just easier that way. And I want to hear more about the purple and the brown, as do our viewers. And then I'll talk a little bit about the green and the red.
Yes. I have to answer in all honesty. I do not wear a scapular, but my son does, my 15-year-old son. And I feel like when I start something, I want to mean it. So I'm really going to pray about it, because it's no joke. The promises are real. And this one, the brown one, started when Our Lady appeared to St. Simon Stock on July 16th in 1251. And he was distressed. He was the prior of the Franciscan order, the Carmelite order, and he was having trouble. And she came to console him. And originally she meant it for just the Carmelites. And that expanded because of a church pronouncement to all of the faithful who would like to be enrolled in the scapular. And it's like many things Catholic that are powerful and provide so much grace and help with salvation. In our day and age, with great apostasy left and right, it went out of favor. And it used to be that after kids received their first communion, they were often enrolled in the scapular, and the priest would say these enrollment prayers, and they would be vested with the scapular. And what does it look like? If you're watching, you can see that what's really interesting, I learned that it has to be wool and brown, and one small square goes on the front of the chest and the one on the back, the upper back. And there's 2 cords that hold it together that are draped on over either shoulder, but it doesn't have to have the images. Isn't that interesting? And
Yeah.
And the words regarding it's a small habit. It's like a little habit. That it's brown, like the Carmelites wear in their habits. And she gave specific words and said to St. Simon Stock, "Take this scapular. It shall be a sign of salvation, a protection in danger, and a pledge of peace. Whosoever dies wearing this scapular shall not suffer eternal fire." So our Blessed Mother promised this to the Prior General of the Carmelite order. And so I want to tell you that I recalled in preparing for this that there are moments in this book that I wrote of Men and Mary, how 6 men won the greatest battle of their lives. Fantastic stories of men and their relationship with Mary. And in there's 3 times when the scapular, more than 3, but 3 ones I want to highlight, in which the scapular is mentioned as something that these men wore when they were in grave sin. And that's not how their lives developed. They didn't stay in grave sin. And I just found that fascinating. So before I tell you some other stories I found, I want to highlight what happened here. And one of these men, this is great. He was a murderer and he ended up in prison. This man probably went as low into sin as someone can in this life. He said he basically had no heart. He was all about vice and sin and committed every one repeatedly. And I think he might have even murdered a cop. So this is what he says when he's in prison. He has this extraordinary experience of conversion that I'm not going to give away. His name is Jim Jennings.
Yes.
He recently passed away. Do you remember him?
Yes. I was waiting to hear which one you're talking about because it was such a good book. I read it in a day. Well, 2. So I couldn't put it down.
Oh, well, awesome.
Their stories were just what God does. You can't read those and not draw closer to God. You can't.
I mean, doesn't it give you such hope? Hope for anyone. Hope for crazy men. Hope for husbands who don't get it. Hope for sons who are far away. Men.
Hope for apostate children. Hope for people who are steeped in sin. And yeah.
Hope. Lots of hope.
Hope
boys
never
Mary.
Disappoints. Right.
No, real hope. Hope in the right place. And so this is what he says. This is Jim Jennings. And he had quite an accent, and he would speak at conferences and crack everyone up after
you
his
can
conversion.
still find him on the internet. If you're interested, go look him up, and you'll see his testimony there as well as in the book. And yeah, you can hear what she means.
Yes, and I won't be able to sound like him, so it might be better to go to the source, but I'll do my best. So he's in prison, and he says, "Then I remembered I had a scapular. My mom had sent it to me in the mail when I lived in Florida about 7 or 8 years earlier. Mom was always real religious, and while I thank her now, it seemed like she was always trying to shove this kind of stuff down my throat. But I was glad for this scapular. It was cloth, not one of them paper ones, and it had the words, 'Whomsoever dies wearing this scapular shall not suffer eternal fire.' That sounded pretty good. But when the scapular came, I was living in adultery with a woman. I put it right on, and that same night it broke. Maybe it didn't like my situation. Figuring it was still good to have, I wrapped up the scapular, tied the strings in a knot, and carried that thing in my pocket for about 8 years, even in prison. So I reached into my pocket and pulled out this scapular, now with about 6 pounds of lint attached to it.
That's right.
After cleaning it, I went to Father Hewitt. He was the prison chaplain. I went to Father Hewitt and said, 'Look, Why don't you take this over to Medjugorje with you? He said,
Yes.
Jim, you don't understand.
Yeah.
At customs, they give you a hard time, and I might lose it. But I said, no, come on, Father, give it to Maria. The newsletter says Maria's real spiritual, you know. Give it to Maria to hold, and maybe Our Lady will get something from God to give me on this scapular. He said, Jim, you can't even get next to these seers because there are hundreds, sometimes thousands of people surrounding them. Come on, take it anyway, Father, try. All right. Everything over there is blessed by Our Lady anyway, because she's there. So he took my scapular over to Medjugorje. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for him to come back, I found a scapular investment prayer for the priest to say and a morning offering I could pray in order to live
You
out...
forgot your accent, Jim.
And a morning offering I could pray in order to live out the scapular stuff. All from the box the little old ladies brought in. I'm figuring that I'm going to do this good, you know. Well, he comes back, and he did get next to one of them seers, Vishka. He put the scapular on her hand, and then he had to run her down because I guess she thought it was a gift or something. This broken-looking, all balled-up thing.
That ball of lint.
I sewed the scapular where the string was broke, took it to confession and mass, and says, hey, Father, come on, invest me with this scapular, will you? And bless it first. My mother wouldn't have sent me nothing that wasn't blessed, but I didn't think of that then. He said, it's probably blessed already. Oh, wrong accent. He said, it's probably blessed already. Did you make your first Holy Communion in a Catholic school? If so, you probably were invested in it then. I says, I don't know if I was or I wasn't. So we started arguing back and forth. He's Irish just like me. Finally, he does it. He invests me with the scapular. That week, all of a sudden, I received such a gift of faith. When I read the Bible, it would speak to me. Before that, I had a hard time reading Gospels and couldn't believe that Jesus was doing all those things. Now I believed, and a love for Our Lady seemed to blossom and grow inside of me. I just wanted to do everything for her. My whole life, I never knew how to love. I wasn't the toughest person in the world, but I was willing to hurt somebody before they hurt me, and I projected that. In the prison, some guys, they've got this face that looks like you just want to take it right off the front of their head. I mean, they just got an attitude, you know. You know what I mean? And they do things. Well, prison ain't a holy place, you know. Ain't a holy place. People step in front of you when there's a line, which is a dumb thing to do because if you get mad, you can just choke them. I had a real bad temper, and one guy got on my nerves. Every time I seen this guy, all I wanted to do was hit him. One day after the scapular thing, I seen him, and he was cutting up in line asking for some cake. And other guys were saying, hey, you ain't got nothing, but with words that weren't so nice. Then I said, hey, you want mine? And I'm thinking, what possessed me to say that?
To say that.
Because if I give it to him, I'm going to smash it into his face. What, you don't want it, he says? I says, nah, you can have it. And he took it. When I did that for Our Lady, all that tension between him and me just eased. He even acted different around me, and when I seen him after that, I started thinking of him as a human being, having the same problems that got me where I was at.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's just one
and the
of the stories.
It gets better. It just gets even better because I think when people are thinking miracles, Christine, I think they're thinking, you know, you're going to put a scapular on and you'll grow your missing arm or something. But the miracles are, I think, bigger than that, if it might sound paradoxical. But souls that go from damnation to heaven because something's happening internally, and you read story after story after story about these people with the scapulars, and you're like, there's got to be something. It's got to be something.
Something there. Something so beautiful.
And I don't think it's like God wants to give you this piece of cloth and this is going to sit, but it's the idea that you wear it and there's an action involved of it's, you know, you're thinking of it. So you're making an intent going, you're allowing the scapular to be an outward sign to yourself that you're hoping for something between you and God. You know what I mean? I don't want to take the promises away, but a piece of cloth itself, but it's the promises associated with them and your belief in the promises. Well, except for the green one, which we'll get to that. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense. You know what I mean?
Well, it
Because like you
doesn't.
can put it on you, but then I don't care, and then you die. And
Well, what's so interesting is that there's a story of 7 men who were condemned to death, and they didn't believe. And a priest befriended them. He wanted to save their souls. They were communists. And so he befriended them with cigarettes and a drink and some food. And so they got to liking him. And he said, as you go to your death, I really want to ask a favor of you. Will you wear this scapular? And 6 of them said yes willingly. And one of them only did it because he was forced to. His heart did not want to wear that thing. He was not at all interested.
Right.
And then the firing squad happened, and they were killed. And the priest looked on the ground, and the 6 men who wore it willingly all had the scapular on them. The 7th one, who didn't want it on, it was many feet away from him on the
That's
ground.
my point. That's my point. You can't say, it's profane God, blaspheme God, and then put it on.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, God's got an angel, take that off of you,
Yeah.
but it's, I think the reminder of put this on, allow me to change your heart has some kind of open door.
There's something there.
Little things.
Another guy wanted to commit suicide, and he kept trying to drown himself, but he wore the scapular for some reason, and he was always miraculously saved. And he got tired of that, and so he took it off, tried to drown himself, and succeeded. So, I mean, that's just such a horrifying but true testimony
Yeah.
of these things are a grace because we accept them as a grace with our heart.
Right.
And
right.
It's like
you can't take your friend and tie him down and hold it on him, and now you're getting to heaven if they don't want it.
No, they can refuse it up to the very end. But there is a grace attached to a blessed scapular that's quite profound. And a young 16-year-old who ended up becoming a priest, he said, this is another chapter of Men and Mary, how 6 men won the greatest battle of their lives. So he said, when I turned 16, I discovered the Brown Scapular, a sacramental that the Blessed Mother gave to the Carmelite priest St. Simon Stock back in the year 1251. The scapular is made up of 2 small rectangular pieces of cloth from Carmelite habits attached to a cord which goes loosely around one's neck. The piece that hangs in the front reads, Sign of Salvation, and the back piece says, Whosoever dies wearing the scapular shall not suffer eternal fire. This promise holds if the person wears it in faith and trust. When I found out about the scapular, I gasped. A free ticket to heaven? I would swim with it, shower with it. It never came off, even in the midst of my non-Christian life. In football practice, my front piece would sometimes poke out from my football chest pads, causing my buddies on the team to ask, Hey, what's that hanging around you? Oh, it's a scapular. A what? Yeah, it's cool. The Blessed Virgin said that if you wear this, you're going to heaven. I had almost the whole football team wearing one.
Especially when you play the big guys that could break you.
So the same thing happened with a man Michael Leitner, who became Father Michael Leitner. He's the first story in the book, and it's so funny. He talks about how he hated it when his mom came back from Medjugorje with a huge bag of scapular for them all to wear, and he never wanted to wear one until he saw a cool football player at his school who ended up in the pros. His name was Jim Flanagan, wearing one under his football jersey. And because he wore one and because he was cool, Michael wore one and he said he passed hundreds of those out. So I just find it fascinating that when the Spirit catches, and these are passed out everywhere, you have no idea of the graces that you're spreading.
Right.
No idea. Right. And, there's stories I found whereby when there was a famine, they passed him out and suddenly there were crops. And
I think the act of just taking it from someone, even if you don't fully believe, the Lord allows you the graces to start believing. He just gives you the grace, and then you can choose it. But you know what I mean? The act of, all right, fine, I'll hold it. I'll see what it can do. There's a tiny bit of grace or hope or faith.
I think it might be similar to like walking in a church. You might not believe, but by virtue of going inside, where a lot of prayer is said and where Jesus is, it's not, when you wear Our Lady's mantle, she's with you. Whether you love her and accept her is a choice of free will. But wearing her mantle says, I accept your cloth, your garment, your habit of love and protection, and I love you in return. And right. One of the things that is asked for, of course, is to strive to be like her, to strive for that kind of holiness, to be pure, to be chaste. And isn't that interesting that when Jim Jennings wasn't chaste, immediately broke. It right. Immediately broke.
Didn't think he liked my living situation there.
Living situation. So this was one of my favorite stories that I read about the Brown Scapular. One day, a young woman, before entering religious life, went to see the Curé d'Ars. And that is, he is the patron saint of priests. He's one of my favorite saints. And Saint Jean Vianney is his name. He's also called the Curé of Ars, the Curé d'Ars in French.
I can't do French.
Okay, try. Yeah. And during the conversation, he asked her, "Do you recall, my child, at the certain evening of dancing where you were? There was a very young man, a very handsome, unknown, distinguished, admired, and all the girls wanted to dance with him. Yes, I recall when he never came to ask me. I was sad, yet all the other girls were privileged to dance with that young man. You would have liked to dance with him, wouldn't you? Yes. Do you recall when that young man was leaving the dance hall, you saw under his feet 2 blue flames? And you thought it was an illusion of your eyes? When you saw that young man leave the dance hall, you saw fire under his feet. It was not an illusion of your eyes, my daughter. That man was a demon. And if he did not come to you to ask you to dance, it's for one reason. You were wearing the vestment of Our Lady of Mount Carmel."
Wow. Where is that from?
Is
that just one of the miracles you found?
Internet, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Christine and I look at the internet too because it never lies.
No, of course not.
Oh, do I have to go to confession for that?
I think so.
I think so too. Okay, bless me, Father, for I have said the internet lies, but not in that story.
So the devil does not like.
Me.
I mean, there is protection, and the Venerable Francis Ypes, Ypes, one day his scapular fell off. And as he replaced it, he heard the devil howl these words, "Take off the habit which snatches so many souls from us."
Yeah.
So then and there, Francis made the devil admit that there are 3 things which the demons are most afraid of. And this is traditionally what was said by the devil to St. Francis Ypes. There are 3 things which we are most afraid of: the holy name of Jesus, the holy name of Mary, and the holy scapular of Carmel. To that list, we could add the Holy Rosary. So I found what I didn't know in doing this research, and some of the listeners may already know this, that at the final apparition that Bernadette had in Lourdes of Our Lady, she came as Our Lady of Mount Carmel. And that's who she was when she appeared to St. Simon Stock and gave the scapular. And Bernadette said she was most beautiful of all in that particular apparition. Same at Fatima. After the miracle of the sun, she appeared as Our Lady of Mount Carmel, again, holding the brown scapular and extending it out. And Sister Lucia, one of the Fatima visionary seers, said that this is what she says. In 1858, in the same month and on the same date, July 16th, on the 18th, on the last apparition of Our Lady at Lourdes, she appeared to Bernadette dressed as Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Saint Bernadette testifies that this was the most beautiful of the apparitions. Sister of Lucia of Fatima made a similar comment when at her sixth and last apparition at Fatima, Our Lady showed herself in 3 different forms of clothing. The third and last was that of Our Lady of Carmel, wearing the religious habit of the Carmelites. This, said Lucia, was the most beautiful sight of all. And Lucia later attested that the scapular was being held out towards her and the world, signifying that Our Lady wanted everyone in the world to wear the brown scapular and profit from it. So that's the line that got me, that made me thinking, okay, I pray the rosary. I know she wants everyone praying that, but I didn't realize until this that the scapular was on par in some way with the rosary, because the rosary shows that you're doing what Our Lady has asked. The scapular is an outward sign and
of your faith.
And it's a sacramental, an outward sign of grace that says, I have given myself, I've consecrated myself to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And it says, I've done that. And I want to live for her, and I want her to take me straight to Jesus. So the brown scapular clearly was strengthened by miracle after miracle after miracle.
And you can go read them anywhere. I mean, when we were talking about this show, we wanted to research for what we said at the beginning of the show. We don't yet wear them, but we both want to wear them. And I'm with you, Christine. I didn't want to just throw one on haphazardly. I wanted to know, really. And that's why the purple one, the brown one, the red, the green that we're going to talk about, it's like, what? And so with the brown one, as you just said, there has to be an investiture, which there's some prayers that you can read about.
Yes, and a priest has to do that. And what we can do with you can look that up, what the investiture prayers are, but we will also give a link at the bottom of when this becomes a video, and you would go to YouTube and you would type in Queen of Peace Media, and you'll see this video on the scapulars. I want to just close with one story before we take a break, and then we're going to talk about the green scapular, the red scapular, and
then the purple.
The purple.
I can't wait to hear about that one.
Yes, that one's, wow, I've got it. Boy, did I have a story for you on that. So this one is so beautiful. Another scapular miracle took place in 1845. In the late summer of that year, the English ship King of the Ocean, on its way to Australia, not far from Cape Hope, found itself in the middle of a hurricane. As wind and sea mercilessly lashed the ship, a Protestant minister with his wife and children and other passengers struggled to the deck to pray for mercy and forgiveness, as the end seemed at hand. Among the crew was a young Irishman, John McAuliffe. On seeing the urgency of the situation, the youth opened his shirt, took off his scapular, and making the sign of the cross with it over the raging waves, tossed it into the ocean. At that very moment, the wind calmed.
Wow.
Only one more wave washed the deck, bringing with it the scapular, which came to rest at the young man's feet.
That's awesome.
All the while, the minister, a Mr. Fisher, had been carefully observing McAuliffe's actions and the miraculous effect of those actions. Upon questioning the young man, he was told about the Holy Virgin and her scapular. Mr. Fisher and his family became determined to enter the Catholic Church as soon as possible, and thereby enjoy the same protection of Our Lady's scapular. This they did shortly after landing in Australia.
That's fantastic. That is awesome.
So,
there's so many stories that we can't share with you. Look them up and see where the Lord leads you.
yes.
The stories are great, but I don't want to talk too much because we do need to take a commercial break and we got more to talk to you about. So spitting my lip.
So this is Find Your Way Home with Christine and Christine. And we will be right back on Radio Maria.
Thank you guys for staying tuned. Before the commercial break, Christine was talking about the brown scapular, and I'd like to quickly talk about the green and then a small piece on the red scapulars before we get to the purple. I'm not going to give you as many stories because of the fact that we want to try to get the 3 of them in, and we do want to both encourage you, if you're serious about wearing a scapular, receiving the graces that come from these, do your research, see which one the Lord is touching your heart, or maybe a couple of them. Then wear that one with the faith that the Lord gives you. But enough of me rambling. So I wanted to talk about the green scapular. This one looks pretty old because I've had this for many, many years, but I wanted you to see what it looks like. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about it. So I'm going to go really quickly into it. But this one, in 1840, our Blessed Mother gave the green scapular to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Try that again. Green scapular of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and I'm going to blow this name. Sister Justine, can you say it, Christine? Bisqueburu?
Bisqueburu.
It's French, and I certainly can't do it. But she was a daughter of charity of St. Vincent de Paul, which, as a matter of fact, there's 2 other people that the Blessed Virgin talked to that were also the daughter of charity of St. Vincent de Paul. So if you're a young girl looking at what order to go into, I think that one's kind of chosen, but that's a side note here. So this woman, this Sister Justine, belonged to the same community as St. Catherine Labouré. And that, if you remember, is who the Blessed Virgin gave the Miraculous medal to 10 years before. So, right there, I was kind of like, this is amazing. So she speaks to her and gives her the Miraculous medal, and then 10 years later to Sister Justine. But anyway, so as I'm jumping ahead, the scapular has an image of the Immaculate Heart of Mary on one side, and I'll let you look it up yourself. And it has on the other side an image with the inscription, Immaculate Heart of Mary, pray for us now and at the hour of our death. And so, unlike the brown one that Christine was talking about that had an investiture, things that had to be done, the good thing about this is all you need to do is have a priest bless it and then wear it, or you can place it in your clothing, on the bed or in the room, because I keep thinking, okay, let me tell you some honesty. Modesty is something we struggle with in our generation. And I look at people and they have, so much, and I've had, open shirts and stuff here like spaghetti straps, and you're like, how you tuck it in. But the good thing is when the Blessed Virgin said, you can just tuck this into your clothing. Of course you want to be modest, but I think too, I can put this in my pillow. I can put it in a pocket of my pants or my purse or whatever. So she says, but just be diligent about praying that prayer as often as you think about it. And if you forget, just read it again. Immaculate Heart of Mary, pray for us now and at the hour of our death. And so there's something I really found was exciting about this one, is that you can also give this scapular to someone else, whether they want it or not. And I know we were just talking about, people have to have the faith associated with the scapular, but when the green scapular was, after I read it, I perceived it more of something that the Blessed Virgin was saying is, give it to someone even if they don't want it, and you pray the prayer and watch what I do. Christine, you read a little bit about this one, right? Did you?
Yes, I found it very intriguing, and I have a personal story of a little bit of conversion, because this scapular,
do you want to share that real quick? You want to share that since you're talking?
Sure. This is about conversion, this scapular. This is about moving the heart of someone else that
yes.
either give the scapular to, or you sneak it. And this is so interesting.
I love that.
You're right. That when Mary first appeared to this nun to tell her about the scapular, she didn't give too many details. And because she didn't give too many details, it took a few years for it to be propagated.
6 years.
6 years, because they thought, they had questions about it. Well, are you supposed to wear it? Are you supposed to give it? Are there any prescriptions around it? Yeah. And so she gave those prescriptions and said, if the person who you are praying for or who you're trying to convert or either return to the church or bring into the church for the first time, those are the graces attached to this particular scapular. If they don't want it, it's okay. She didn't use the word sneak. Do you have the actual quote of what she said to do?
It says, it suffices that it be blessed by a Catholic priest and worn by the one whom we desire to benefit from Our Lady's intercession. If, on the other hand, the person is unable or even unwilling to wear or carry it, it may be slipped, unknown to them, into their clothes, possessions, home, or work environment, etc.
So, as Catholics, sometimes we're planting miraculous medals or St. Benedictine medals, or things.
Just planting seeds.
We're just planting seeds. We don't make people swallow them.
We let the Lord water.
We do.
Apollos water.
We don't do anything indecent with them, but we will sneak around. And so that's exactly what.
So all you mothers out there with kids, you need to buy one for each kid. Put it in his or her pillow. Put it in their buckets.
Inside a pillow is a great idea. So
because it's under their head.
Yeah. So in the future, we're going to introduce a friend of mine and a friend of my son's, a teenager Oswaldo Sanchez. But so Christine met him, and he told me this story, and this was just a few months ago. He's trying to bring his mother back to the church, and so one day she was in her room on her knees, just feeling contrition, sorry for her sins, begging for the grace to change her ways and come closer to God and come back to God. And her heart was opened and spilling out to the Lord. And as she was on her knees, she thought to herself, I think my son stuck something somewhere.
Oh, did she really?
And so she goes over to the bed, she lifts up the mattress, and then she goes, I know my kid did something. And in the center of the box spring underneath the top mattress was the green scapular.
No.
Yeah, so that happened just a few months ago.
That is so funny. But she knew it. Her spirit knew it. But I don't want to waste too much time because we got to get to the other scapulars. Yes. So we just want to say the brown one has a procedure. You've got to want this, wear it. It's a choice. This one, of course, it's a choice. But you can also pray for the person to whom you give the scapular. You can pray for them. And what a beautiful way to be a Christian of intercessory prayer. That's what the Lord always says. So let me jump to a miracle of one of the ones. Again, for the sake of time, I'm only going to read one of the miracle stories that I found, but this is from the 1800s when I wish it were still the way, but marrying someone who's divorced was still acknowledged as the sin that it is. But anyway, it was the time for classes to begin in a large high school, and all the pupils were ready and interested in the subject except for one. And where was she? She who was always on time and fully alive to the day's work. Her name was Noeline. It's not her real name. But Noeline had a heavy heart that morning, and she was waiting to see Sister Superior to unburden her sorrow to the kind sister whom she felt would help. If anybody could help, Sister could. Good morning, Noeline. What can I do for you? Asked Sister. In tears and sobs, the young girl said, Oh, Sister, my mother will die today. My mother will surely die today. Now, Noeline, Sister said, surely your mother is not that ill. I tell you, Sister, my mother will die of a broken heart today because my sister is to be married to a divorced man and nothing will stop her. She has it all arranged, and they are to be married this morning. Oh, sister, my poor mother will die." Amid sobs, the poor girl just stood there weeping by sister's side, and suddenly sister said, "Your mother will not die, nor your sister marry that man either. Take this green scapular home this minute. Tell your mother to start saying the prayer, 'Immaculate Heart of Mary, pray for us now and at the hour of our death,' and to say it over and over, not to stop it. I tell you, that man will not marry your sister." I just want to stop real quick and point out what true faith accompanied that. So it continues. "Hasten now and tell mother to say this prayer with confidence in the Blessed Mother, and all will be well." So poor Noeline started on the way home and did as she was told. The sorrow-stricken mother received sister's message, and with a heavy heart, but as one clutching at a last straw, she began the hours of prayer for her poor deluded child. Surely Mary would help in this hour of anguish. The morning dragged on. The mother prayed. The Sister Superior, too, and her students implored the Blessed Mother for something very urgent that morning, and all waited almost breathlessly for the outcome. Early the next morning, Noeline arrived at school, but oh, with what a different feeling. No, her sister did not marry that man as planned on the previous day, and this she hastened to impart to Sister Superior. With animation, she came to tell Sister that the man who was in the army and who was permitted to have the day off for his marriage, when he came and saw how heartbroken the girl's mother was, said to his intended bride, "We had better wait. I could not go through with this with your mother feeling as she does. Let us wait a short while and see if she will not get over this and give her consent." What a surprise! What a moment of intense relief! Yes, the Blessed Mother was doing her work and would continue to shield her child who had been so faithful to her in days gone by. So the marriage was put off indefinitely. However, it was decided between the couple that if the groom-to-be could get a furlough, they would be married, hoping by this time the mother would be reconciled. Sister urged the girl to tell her mother to continue the prayer, and she knew our Blessed Lady would not let that marriage take place. The prayer was answered. Just a few days before the furlough, all leaves of absence were withdrawn. That division of men ordered to start for parts unknown, in fact, it was to Indochina, and all communications between the man and the girl were broken off. Thus did Mary show her power and reward the confidence of her humble servants who confided in her. I mean, to me, that's just amazing, because the woman received graces in not stepping into a sin that she didn't believe was a sin, but Sister was praying, Sister Superior, the girl's mother, the girl's sister, and a bunch of classmates that had no idea exactly what the intention was. But that was pretty, I mean, that's just one of several stories that we don't have time to read. So,
yes. And I think since that is such a common thing today that it's not seen as a sin at all, just a little catechesis around that, because I have a feeling some of the listeners and some of the viewers are saying, well, why would you pray for that? Wouldn't you wish the couple well? Why does a person who's divorced have to be lonely their whole life? What is the church doing? I just think there's going to be a lot of...
You're right, and we should talk about that sometime.
Yeah, so we could... And Christine Bacon does a marriage ministry and has studied this intensively. But yes, the church does grant annulments, and had the man gone through proper annulment and been ready to marry, the church blesses that. But this was not that. And so there's a chance for him to reconcile with his wife, who he's still technically married to. So hence the sin. So very briefly, I know we don't have too much time, but the purple scapular, this is what it looks like. Da, 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 da. This is Mary, and this is a depiction of Jesus on Mary's lap after he has come down the cross, used with this ladder here, and this is the reed that pierced him, and this is an angel gathering her tears of sorrow and wiping the blood from his feet. And on the back is A chalice collecting drops from 3 nails, and the blood is falling into the chalice with the crown of thorns and a bushel up top. And in this scapular, the description that Mary gave of it, I'm not sure, and we haven't been able to find anyone who can explain what this bushel that looks like a bundle of oats represents. So if you want to comment in the YouTube channel what that represents, we'd love to know. But this came from one of the most incredible mystics and stigmatists of all time. A stigmatist is someone who has the wounds of Christ on their body. And her name is Marie-Julie Jahenny. She lived from 1850 to 1941 in France, in Breton, and that's why she's sometimes called the Breton mystic. And she received numerous visitations from heaven and had multiple wounds, interesting wounds, not your common wounds of the stigmata. She would sometimes freeze and her bones would meld together. She'd be in tremendous pain. She wouldn't be able to speak. Her tongue would be still. Tremendous suffering, hence tremendous grace. And her mission from the Lord was to spread the love of the cross. And what a beautiful thing to give to us, to prepare us for hard times, which we are entering into right now. A lot of her sufferings at that time back then were to help us now as we enter a period of turmoil and tribulation before the glorious renewal of Christendom in the glorious era of peace, which is also mentioned by Our Lady of Fatima. And you can get this scapular many places. queenofpeacemedia.com has one, and you also get cards with explanations of who Marie-Julie Jahenny is and what the promises are as well. And I think what I might do in our closing prayer is to just read, like a meditation, some of what God has promised through the scapular. This is what Our Lady said when she appeared to Marie-Julie Jahenny on August 23rd, 1978. I tell you, my victim and my servants of the cross, for a long time my son and I have had the desire to make known this scapular of benediction. This first apparition of this scapular will be a new protection for the times of the chastisements, the calamities, and the famines. All those who wear it shall pass under the storms, the tempests, and the darkness. They will have light as if it were plain day. Such is the power of this unknown scapular.
Wow.
And other great promises. My children, all souls, all people who possess this scapular will see their family protected. Their home will also be protected, foremost from fires, which will never enter there. The scapular will strike down the ungrateful who blaspheme my name in the house where it is displayed. If an impious person enters, they will be so completely struck that their conversion will be close. All those who carry it will be preserved from thunder, from sudden death, and from accidents. During chastisements, they will be protected. Whoever will place it in the holy temple, in a church, will drive out impious persons and profanation.
Wow.
Our Lord added by reminding an obstinate soul about this scapular at the time of their death, it will reawaken their faith and conviction that all those who have it and think of it and love it will be spared the pains of the soul, that those who carry it will be sheltered from any danger as though they already possess heaven. And finally, that the scapular will be like a lightning rod beneath which the blows of divine wrath will not strike.
Wow.
So we only have a minute. I'm going to tell you a story in the fastest way possible. A friend of mine put this scapular at a home in California. California experiences fires. 2 days later, a fire hit that destroyed 100 properties, razed them to the ground north of their property and 100 properties south. 100-foot-high wall of fire came right up to the house from all 4 sides and stopped.
Wow.
First and foremost, the promises say there's a protection from fire. So with these scapulars, we didn't get a chance to give you the red scapular, but maybe you can look that one up. We talked about the brown scapular, we talked about the green scapular, and we talked about the purple scapular. These are all available to you. I will give a link down below for where you can get the purple scapular. The other ones are very easy to find. And Christine and I wish you every blessing. We pray that you will consider, as we are considering, wearing one of these scapulars, and that you will love Mary and allow her love and her protection to enfold you under her mantle.
Amen.
And may you find your way home. God bless you.